All right, let's get into audience questions for the week. First question today. Hey, David, will you please do the right thing and simply denounce outrage culture? So, listen, the problem is not outrage. Anyone who's paying attention to what is going on and what has been going on in society for the last 50 years, at least economically, culturally, and in many other ways, everything from gross inequality, corporate control of all aspects of society, a government that is in many ways not held accountable for its actions, the military-industrial complex, the pseudo-intellectualism and anti-intellectualism. Like, if you've been paying attention, you should actually be outraged, and that actually makes sense. But the problem is not the outrage itself, in the same way that the problem with so-called social justice warriors is not social justice itself. And these words, these phrases have become dirty words in great part because the right has really successfully focused in on slivers of movements and blown them up to claim that they are representative big picture. But the real issue that I have with, quote, outrage culture and some of these other things, the social justice warrior movement and whatever, is not the fact that they exist, but how they are wielded. And I'll even go further and include identity politics in that. I've said before, identity politics in and of itself, as a general concept, is not the problem. It's not the problem per se. The problem is that there is a version of identity politics that has gone beyond simply recognizing that, hey, someone's identity is not only important to them, but one's identity does give them a unique perspective in terms of their view of the world and what they can bring to a conversation. And we should recognize that and listen to that. The problem is there are areas where identity politics is wielded like a cudgel. I've talked about this before. In the same way, outrage meaning like anger and disapproval of things. Outrage helps to change those things if it is wielded appropriately and productively. That is what we want. If people weren't outraged about injustices, they'd never change. The problem is when outrage culture leads to counterproductive demagoguery, faux activism that's not actually going to lead to change that the outraged people claim to want. A cartoonish example is, the story I did years ago that went viral on YouTube. To protest racism, some white people were blocked from going to classes one day. That's a totally backwards application of outrage that we should have about different forms of systemic racism that still exists in our society. That was not the right implementation of the outrage into making productive change. In fact, it was completely counterproductive. And then when it comes to media, people should be outraged when discussing the extremist messages that are perpetuated. But then sometimes people are equally outraged, as I've spoken before, just because someone has the audacity to have a different point of view. That is destructive outrage culture, right? When I say, as a progressive, that I want the U.S. out of Venezuela and our involvement in Latin America has been disastrous, but that Maduro and Chavez are not people that have been good for the Venezuelan people, that they have raped and pillaged the economies and societies of Venezuela, all of a sudden I'm an anti-progressive. And people are, quote, outraged at me. It's a small sliver, again, and that's all we're talking about here. Or again, I've mentioned this before. I don't see Tulsi Gabbard as the be-all, end-all presidential candidate that every progressive should support. Wow. All of a sudden, I am the enemy of the progressive movement. People are demanding this, that, and the other thing from me. Or because I think the squad lacks political savvy and sometimes misses the forest for the trees. Outrage because I am now the enemy. Outraged there, and of course I'm biased because it relates to me, that outrage seems out of place and literally counter to the 95 or 99% of issues on which we all agree and should be activists for. So the problems with all of these movements, the problems are not the outrage itself or the social justice or the recognition of identity in people. It's their application and their implementation. And I'll say something further. Corporate media takes advantage of these rifts. Corporate media exploits them and makes them bigger and makes profit off of them while they divide people and prevent actual progress. So we help them to divide us the more we participate in these battles around some of these issues. Understand outrage culture, understand why people should be outraged, and wield these ideas in a responsible way. And most people do. I know I say this often. Most people actually do, and most people recognize identity for the value that it has, and they recognize social justice for what it is that we want it to be. And we have to make sure that we don't allow that sliver that doesn't, or the agents provocateur, agents provocateurs, who are trying to just agitate using fake outrage or fake social justice warrior personas or whatever, and focus on the fact that most of us are united as to what it is that we want to see going forward. If you love learning new things, you probably want to check this out. The David Pakman Show today is sponsored by Skillshare, and we're giving you 2 entire months of free access to Skillshare when you click the link underneath this video. Skillshare is a vibrant online learning community offering more than 25,000 video classes on just about anything you can think of. Get better at playing an instrument. Learn to use Photoshop. How to edit videos. They have classes on drawing, painting, business, cooking, nutrition, personal productivity, and I'm not even really scratching the surface. I recently took a great class on introductory watercolor painting. I'm still not good, but I am learning, and you can access the entire library of fun, easy to use online courses for free for 2 months by using the link underneath this video. 2 months of learning something that's totally new to you, something you want to get better at, something you already love, or you can get ahead in your career by learning new skills that will help you at your job. I've gotten a ton out of it. Pat has taken some courses that he's found really valuable, and I think you'll love it too. Get started for free by clicking the link under this video.